Welcome to today's Heart of the Hustle. I am here with the amazing Sabrina, who is the Vice President of the International Dyslexia Association. And I'm so excited to be here with you today to tell us more about the association and just you're an amazing woman. And so excited to introduce you to our listeners and our watchers and learn more about you. So tell us a little bit about you.
I am a mom of a neurodivergent kid who's got dyslexia. I also have dyslexia. So that's what kind of led me to the IDA of Dallas. And for my day job, I'm a VP of Business Development.
That's amazing. So tell us, how did you realize that you were dyslexic?
When I was a kid, they had very limited testing. And so I think, just doing hooked on phonics with my dad and not really being able to grasp it kind of enlightened the teachers to that there could be a problem there. But back then, we didn't have the resources that we have now. And so it looked a lot like reading in a book room with, two other students. It wasn't until I got to high school where I had a history teacher who was blind, who would do social studies tests.
Like verbally? Oh, wow, that's cool.
And we would put away all of our notes and we would do the study exam verbally. And I always aced the verbal exam and always did terrible on the written exam. And so finally he pulled me aside. He asked me if I was cheating during the verbal exams, which he has an assistant, so he knew that I wasn't. But then he started to just give me those tests verbally and my grades went way up because I just needed that auditory processing instead of, kind of confusing myself with all the different options, especially in tests where there's double negatives, things like that. I can easily just skip over stuff like that.
Yeah. And I know we were, friendly outside of this. So you've told me stories about when you were little, they just didn't know what to do with you, right? Or maybe some other kids who were neurodivergent or so they just kind of put you in as hey, go over here with the kids who can't read so good. And then they would stick you on at your own table.
Yeah, I know. I was always so jealous of the kids that got to go in the advanced reading area or group or, wherever. They were reading chapter books and then they gave us these little kid, this is what the rest of the class was reading 3 years ago and we're trying to stumble through it on our own in the book room. And I just remember being so jealous of them. I remember going to the library and picking out the biggest book to bring home and just fantasizing about being able to read it one day, but still just not being able to read it and looking, page by page, looking through it, looking at pictures and trying to understand.
Yeah. So what happened? So your teacher in high school kind of realized hey, this might be, dyslexia. What happened then? How did your life change, or did you start therapy, or what did that look like?
For me, not much. It was a little learned too late. So by sixth grade, I was able to keep up with my classroom. Besides for in testing, it didn't really affect me anymore. And I was able to get good grades. I went to college and took the 2-year program while I was in high school. And so I think, I had overcome a lot before any kind of accommodations happened for me. I have no idea what would have happened if I had accommodations earlier. But I was able to, just strive through it.
Do you think you just kind of figured it out on your own, just struggle until you could figure it out, or because you didn't really have any coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad tried hooked on phonics with me until I was in tears practically. So we really did just kind of push through. And, sometimes when I look at my son and he's like, well, Mom, you're dyslexic. Why don't you just teach me how you learned how to read? And I have to look at him and be like, I can't explain to you how I learned how to read. I have no idea. And some of the stuff when I sit in and listen to his tutor, who's a calc therapists go through, the things that he's learning and decoding and all of these, kind of fancy uh, reading techniques that I never learned. I'm always like, oh, that makes sense. Like sitting there in the kitchen, kind of like overhearing what they're what they're doing and like learning as well. So, and that's why I've enjoyed like going to the dyslexia conferences and I mean every month we have a dig meeting where someone's speaking to dyslexia and we get to continually learn and grow, which is like human nature and very exciting.
So did you ever seek any kind of treatment for it, or did you just it just kind of clicked for you, but you always knew that it was something that was out there, right? Did you like when you were in college or anything, did you feel like you had to seek any accommodations?
I did not know to seek out accommodations in college. If I could go back, I probably would seek out accommodations. I think, we all have like our little perfectionist kind of routines. And so I notice sometimes like if I wasn't going to get the assignment like perfectly right, if it wasn't 100% done, I wouldn't turn it in for less than, full credit. Some people would turn in like half finished assignments and get a 70 or something like that. But I just like could not bring myself to do that. And I think, I went to school online, which is kind of new, right? And so taking tests online kind of cracked some things open where a lot of teachers would allow you to do open book tests, things like that, where it just made it a little bit easier than just sitting down with a piece of paper and a number 2 pencil and a Scantron. I'm aging myself right now.
We're using all these terms that no one knows, like
Yeah.
Scantron and like number 2 pencil and hooked on phonics. I don't know if that is that around anymore.
It is. I think it is.
We need to find some old hooked on phonics.
I know. Yeah.
So, how have you seen the dyslexia manifest in your adult life?
Working corporate jobs and like emailing, right? Email communication, being virtual, and really like communicating with people on Slack or on Teams. I'll often see myself misspell things or leave out punctuations. My husband mentions that like my text messages are just like one big run-on sentence.
That's funny. My husband has no ability to do punctuation, but I think it's just because he's a hockey guy.
Yeah. So I've been told before in my by people I worked with that I sounded really short, clipped, or like angry in emails, but I think it's just because like the shorter the better and the less to, go through and spell check and grammar check. And so I was like quick and to the point, which sometimes can come off like a little ruthless or a little bit more of like a manly presence, a masculine presence than, like the soft, fluffy female presence that you sometimes expect. And so it's been interesting. I think the more that I'm open with people that I work with, like, hey, I'm dyslexic. And if I spell your name wrong 5 times, it's because it's coming through in all these different ways in my head. Especially as we start to work like globally with people from all sorts of different countries. That's been one of the things where I'm like, I sounded out. Okay. All right. Well, I think I got it right. So, sounding it out is something that I still do as an adult, which is wild.
Yeah, God, I can't even imagine being in a job where you had to work English as a second language if you were also dyslexic. Like, I find it hard enough.
We see that a lot for our bilingual students in Texas, where, English is their second language and they're trying to learn to read. They can get very, very far behind. And so we really need to take care of our bilingual students. A lot of the times there's many tables set up at these dyslexia symposiums or conferences where there's a table just for those ESL students.
So how did you get involved with the Dyslexia Association?
I was doing some research and I was talking to a friend of mine, and she I was asking her for career advice. I said, like what can I do to kind of like take my career to the next level? And she said, go on LinkedIn and look up some of the women that you're inspired by and see what they've got going on. See how many times they move jobs, look at, where they're volunteering. And one of the things I noted was they were all on boards. They were all volunteering for a cause that they believed in. And I thought to myself, like, well, why haven't I done that yet? That seems like something I could really enjoy. And I went to a forum and I was looking through all, the different boards in the Dallas area and thinking about what really related with me and that I could get behind and be passionate about and really care about. And the Dyslexia Association kind of stood out for me. So then I went through their interview process, met a couple of their members, went to the Garland ISD Dyslexia Symposium and was like fired up. After that symposium, I was like, this is what every district needs. They all need something to like help inform parents, help inform teachers. And so I was really excited to join. And as I got brought onto the board, there's been other opportunities that we've looked at that, we can really make some big changes.
Yeah, so tell us, you've taken on a new role. Tell us a little bit about what you do with the Dyslexia Association and some of the projects you guys are working on.
So I was formerly the chairperson for the development committee, which is in charge of all the fundraising. So we managed North Texas Giving Day, we managed all the conferences, and we managed, grants and things like that. Now, I just took on the role of vice president, and so I'm really excited about it. I kind of moved from fundraising to recruiting and governance. We have, in the last couple months, brought on several new board members, which I'm really, really excited about. It should, mark a new era for the IDA Dallas, where we're going to be raising a lot of money, and we're going to be trying to get out there and get more scholarships in the hands of kids, in the hands of families, and really changing how we approach dyslexia down here in Dallas and Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Okay, so you mentioned scholarships. Is that where a lot of the money that you're raising is going towards?
That's where the majority of our money ends up going. We have very little operating costs, and a lot of our money will be going to conferences where we do educational conferences for teachers and educators, therapists, as well as scholarships. And scholarships has been one of the things that we've been actively trying to campaign and get out there, because not a lot of people know about our scholarships. And they can really help students. 1 in 5 students has dyslexia. So whether they're diagnosed or not, we're out there trying to help. We're looking at new ways of funding our scholarship program. So instead of just providing therapy, reading therapy, we're looking at potentially, helping them get diagnosed, helping them get a tutor, helping them, through their summer reading program, something like that, to kind of provide like all over scholarships for, anything that a student may need.
This diagnosis is a long process, it seems, for my friends who've gone through it with their children, and it's expensive.
It is. We went through it with my son. His test scores were too high, and the school didn't think that he qualified for the 45-day examination process that it takes for a dyslexic student to get examined, or, a potentially dyslexic student to get examined. So we went and had him privately diagnosed, which they looked at ADHD and dyslexia because, between 30 and 60% of ADHD kids also have dyslexia or learning disability of some kind of nature. And so he was diagnosed through that center with both dyslexia and ADHD. But it was a $3,000 test. It was several days, several hours. And a lot of families don't have access to that kind of, of resources.
So how do you guys find these kids who need these scholarships? Is it through the school systems primarily, or are you looking at like centers that do the, like you went to that help to diagnose?
So right now we are getting the majority of our scholarship applications through the school system. So the schools are helping the students apply for them, and that's been our major way of getting through to these students. Because the IDA doesn't have a huge following, we're not, parents aren't finding us originally online, like through a Google search or something like that. And so they have to hear about us through a teacher the majority of the time. We're looking to change that. We're looking to be more of a resource for parents, be more of a resource outside of, just getting connected through a teacher, so that parents can feel like they've got the tools they need to help their kids.
What are some of the signs as a parent that you should go, that might be something you want to get looked at for dyslexia? Since sometimes does it often show as like ADHD, or it might be both? Or like, what are some of the signs that parents are going to see? Or is it often the schools who bring it up?
I think it's often the schools. I think, if you're a parent with dyslexia, you can it's one of those things. We've seen like a huge uprising of parents kind of self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD because they're sitting through the examination with their son or daughter and going, oh yeah, yep, that's me. And that's me as well. I think with dyslexia, it presents in so many different ways that you really need a professional to help you get diagnosed. I would not be the person to help diagnose you. I can tell you that with my son, we noticed him putting things in an order that wasn't right, like pronouncing the last part of the word before the first part of the word. Different things like that. A lot of the times people confuse dyslexia with like seeing the letters backwards. That's not it. That's not it for everybody. It can present differently for a lot of people. But, one of the things that we do notice is that sometimes like cursive can help because people don't get the letters as mixed up as like your normal font.
Man, you would not want to try to read my cursive.
No, you wouldn't want to try to read mine. I gave up. My grandma would write me letters in cursive and I'd be like, no, grandma, like try again. I can't read this.
I got like brought to the principal's office in fourth grade because I was so bad at penmanship and I didn't want to write like that. I wanted to write the way that I wanted to write. And I was very creative and I wanted to do it my own way.
Well, a lot of the students that have really bad handwriting are dyslexic and might, have dysgraphia or something like that. So my son's penmanship is very hard to read. And it often sometimes is like, are you trying? I know like there's that inattentive ADHD brain where they're like kind of fidgety and all over the place. So you're like, are you moving and writing at the same time? Like what happened here? How did this? One of the things that I found interesting from the dyslexia diagnosis was they had Nash go to a vision therapist, which I'd never heard of before. And one of the things that they noted was like when he was asked to copy a sentence, he would not be able to stay on the line while he copied the sentence. It would kind of float up into the corner and onto the side of the paper and like kind of be all over the place. And so one of the things that we worked on with the vision therapist is like really helping him. It was a processing issue for him. So like what he saw on the paper and then what he took in and then what he could put back out weren't the same. So I remember one test where it was like, draw this triangle, and the tip of the triangle was touching a circle. Draw this picture. And he drew a triangle on one side and a circle on the other. So he was taking in the two shapes, but he wasn't taking it in and computing it back out where where the shapes were touching. And so just things like that, where it's like he didn't have poor eyesight, he didn't have poor vision. It was just the way his brain was kind of processing things was not right.
And so how long has it been since his diagnosis?
He got diagnosed in first grade at the spring end of first grade, which was tough because spring diagnosis is like, okay, well, I guess we wait till next year to get this sorted. And so I think it was like September or October till he started meeting with a dyslexia therapist at his school. And so spring of second grade, and now he's in fourth. So it's been 2 years and he's made a lot of progress. But this early diagnosis is what we aim for through the IDA and like through our advocacy is, getting kids diagnosed as soon, because early intervention is the best kind of intervention. It provides, the best chance of the student not getting left behind and not feeling the dramatic behavioral and mental impacts of being behind in your class. So one of the things we talked about earlier was being kind of put in the book room to read. Well, I think that ends up kind of putting you far and away from your classmates, makes you feel less than, makes you feel like you're not good enough, not smart enough. And so a lot of this, these dyslexic kids or, ADHD kids will end up with like the imposter syndrome of like when you finally are good enough, when you finally are able to read and understand, you still don't feel like you belong at the table, which is kind of disappointing and sad. And a lot of the kids will end up feeling like not good enough. And I don't want that for any kid.
Because you went through that.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen my son go through that. I mean, I've seen him come home and cry that he's the stupidest kid in the class. And I hate that. I hate that for him. And the only thing that you can say as a parent is, well, did you try your hardest? And, we don't compare ourselves to other people because everybody has different things that they're good at, different things that they excel at. Maybe you're not the fastest reader, but maybe you're the fastest in PE, or maybe you can do a Sudoku puzzle faster than any kid in your class. There are other things that we excel at. And I think when you're a kid, there's just so few things to pick from, because like you remember the kid that was the fastest in fourth grade. You remember, the smartest kid in your class where you're like, wow, she was just like above and beyond. You remember the most artistic kid, right? But as we grow and as we become adults, there are lots of other things that we can excel at that aren't these like super finite, scholastic kind of, choices.
Yeah, and I think you're such a good example of that, right? You've developed this career in creating relationships with people, right? And business development, which is really about just connecting.
Right. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I've liked as probably a neurodivergent person myself is, the strategy behind it. Like, what's working? Let's get down to the data. Let's get down to the numbers. Like, why does it work? What did we change about this strategy that all of a sudden started to make it work? When I went to college, it was like business statistics was like my favorite class. And I remember, my friends being like, that was the worst class I ever took. It was terrible. How did you do so well in that class? And I just loved it. So I think, it's strategy, and then also, relating to people and kind of filling a need that they need, and getting to know them and building those relationships are what I love about my job.
Yeah, because you have an interesting mix of very analytical skills, but also very people-centric connection skills.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, I mentioned like emails were hard, right? And I think, with today's technology, things have gotten a little bit easier. You can check your work a little bit more carefully than just like a simple Microsoft Word spell check, which makes which makes life a lot easier and will be interesting. I mean, one of the most interesting conference classes that happened at the national conference, I think, was the talk on how technology is going to affect how we teach a dyslexic student. It'll be able to see patterns in the way the student learns and be able to like create a singular program for each individual student, like an individualized program based on the things that they're seeing. And I think, we touched on it before where dyslexia presents in so many different ways for so many kids. And so having this not like one size fits all kind of answer to the problem is going to be really interesting.
That's awesome. And that's a lot of what the Dyslexia Association is trying to help kids to get access to those types of tools.
I think maybe not those types of tools, but at least like an advocate who can, be present in your ARD meeting, be present in your IEP meeting and get those accommodations for you that you didn't know you needed. I think as a parent, like that's one of the things that was so daunting, sitting at one of those ARD meetings with 8 teachers and a principal and, all these specialists in front of you, and they're going around the room talking about your child and not really knowing, okay, well, is he getting what he needs? Like these people are presenting this plan. It sounds pretty good, but like I wasn't an expert. I couldn't help him in that way. And so I think, having him get diagnosed and joining the board was like, okay, now I know what to ask for. Now I know what he needs. But I need to share that. I need to share that with other parents. I need to share that with my friends. I need to share that with whoever will listen because, he's not the only kid that needs help.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I admire about you being willing to talk about it because it's, not everybody's willing to talk about being neurodivergent. And I think people are starting to be, more open about it. But it's one of those things that the more we're willing to talk about it, right? Whatever it is, right? I talk about being in recovery a lot. I mean, whatever it is that we talk about it allows other people to not feel shame. It allows other people to talk about it. It allows other people to go, "Oh my God, me too." Or I think my kid might, be struggling with this and be a resource for people because we don't know where to go, right? And I think we're lucky where we live that we have school systems that are well funded and that have really good programs, but not everybody has that opportunity.
Well, I think even the well-funded schools sometimes can fall short. You'll look at these schools and sometimes they'll have 3 or 4 reading therapists, like calc level therapists, and then you'll look at another school and they'll only have 1. And then a lot of these schools are trying to pass the dyslexic kids off to the special ed teachers, which is one of the things we hit at our school with my son this year was they were trying to say, okay, well, he's finished the program, but he still was behind in reading by several grade levels. And so it was like, what do you mean he's done? You finished the program. Okay, well, now we need to look at where he didn't have that comprehension level, where he wasn't getting what you were talking about, because if he was through with the program, he'd be reading on grade level is my expectation as a parent. And I think, kind of holding their feet to the fire and saying like, no, I'm not allowing this, instead of, going with what was recommended by a board of teachers, was a fight I had to fight for my son. But someone without my background or without, access to the people I know might have just said, okay, but then their child's still reading 2 grade levels behind and they're still suffering those mental, emotional side effects of being behind and feeling less than. and, depression levels increase in kids with dyslexia. You'll see, just huge anxiety problems with kids with dyslexia. Just thinking about, reading out loud to your classroom, right? I think we all did that where everyone read like a paragraph. Well, when I was a kid, I would count how many people, and Timmy probably went to the bathroom and messed up the numbers. And so, I would try to practice and reread my paragraph over and over again. Someone would go to the bathroom, mess up the paragraph you were supposed to be reading. But that anxiety, it hangs with you and your body learns to be kind of an anxious person. Then you can get anxious about other things as well. And it's just at the detriment to the student. And if we can provide early intervention and we can provide therapy or tutoring or diagnosis that helps put them in a better position to succeed as adults or as young adults, teenagers, then we need to be doing that.
What can we do to help support the work that you're doing?
So I mentioned that we, in the past, have used Texas North Giving Day, and we'll be using Texas North Giving Day, but they just opened up their platform to Texas Gives, I think, or North Texas Gives. And we'll be running like a peer-to-peer campaign on North Texas Gives to help with summer regression. They also call this like summer slide. This can be the 2 months of reading that a student loses over the summer period. So a lot of the times for dyslexic students or students with learning disabilities, they'll have a little bit of a slide or a little bit of a regression over those summer months because it's hard for parents. And I mentioned even as myself, like I can't explain to my son how I learned to read. I don't know the decoding techniques he's learning now. And so, reading on a day-to-day basis with your kids over the summer is hard. It is. It's so hard. They've got baseball games and they've got summer camp and you have work and you have to cook dinner and you have to get them showered and, that kind of stuff kind of falls to the wayside. And I'd like to, we're working with the IDA to, promote a program over the summer for scholarships where students can work with a professional instead of working, with their parents to preemptively not regress and really, stay at the level that they left school at and feel confident going into the fall semester or trimester that they're where they need to be.
What are the ways that you're fundraising for the most part? Are there events we can go to? Are there walks? Or should we just go to the website? How can we help donate?
Well, our national IDA, I believe, or maybe it's the Atlanta IDA, is having a walk or a 5K. I'm calling it a walk because I'll be walking. But that's in October, and that's in Atlanta. And we also do, Dyslexia Awareness Month, which is in October. We do North Texas Gives, which is like peer-to-peer online fundraising campaign. North Texas Gives, the summer regression program will be something that we start in about a month and try to start campaigning for. We have enough scholarship funds to be able to get the scholarships out to the students right now. But those are the ways. We also, we always accept volunteers. Working on the nomination and recruiting committee, we are always looking for volunteers. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be a specialized therapist. Like, we just kind of need people. We need people to kind of help us get the word out. We need people to share, if you see something on our Facebook page or our Instagram story that kind of hits you or impacts you, please share it so that we can get out to more people. Because like I said, we only have about 20,000 followers on Facebook, and I don't know how many on Instagram. But that's how we've mainly been getting our message out to people. We have, a membership program where you can become a member of the IDA, and you can get access to our online CEU credits, things like that. A lot of parents will think that that's not for them; it's only for teachers. But we like to reach more parents, and so we're starting a campaign for a parent pathway, so parents can kind of see where am I at? Like, am I at the point where I need to get an outside opinion? Am I at the point where I need some help and I need to hire or, get someone to volunteer to help me in an IEP meeting or an ARD meeting? And then, or do I need a summer tutor? Do I need a fall tutor? We'd like to be a place where, all those resources are available to parents.
So I know you have 2 kids. Tell us about your other son.
My other son is in first grade. We are lucky enough that he has the same teacher for first grade that Nash had for first grade, which was the teacher who asked for Nash to be diagnosed. Um, she's an amazing human, a personal friend. And she was saying that, our second son also was kind of presenting, not similarly, but in a way that she was like kind of questioning if he was potentially, knowing that I have dyslexia, my son has dyslexia. So we went ahead and pushed for his evaluation. When we pushed for his evaluation, they were like, oh, what he really needs to know by the end of this trimester isn't that much. So let's wait until next trimester where he'll have to know more. And so we pushed it and we waited. And we, found out he was more on the gifted side. What he was presenting with was like kind of a memory issue where he just didn't really know, sight words and didn't really know, some of the foundation language expected learning stuff that he was supposed to know. And yeah, he kind of came out on the other end of like, I'm not being challenged. He would tell our tutor, he'd be like, you already explained it to me once, like enough. And so that was really interesting, and I love that first grade teacher. Her name's Miss Donaldson. Shout out. But she teaches in the way that they teach in Seattle, in Washington, where I'm from. She's also was a teacher up there, and they teach the whole student body to read the way that they teach a dyslexic kid to read, which creates this no child left behind, right? Because we're teaching the whole class to learn the same way. You've seen them kind of morph the way that they teach math. You've seen the way that they've morphed different ways that kids are learning. And that's one thing that I would love for, Texas to kind of, take a hold of and be a part of, is teaching the whole student body to read as if they were a dyslexic kid, learning decoding, learning, all those fundamentals, because I think it just is a more productive classroom.
Oh, it's fascinating. So tell us how we can learn more about what's going on at the IDA. Where can we go to contribute? What should we go to the website? Should we go? You said the Facebook page is really active. Where should we go?
Our Facebook page and our Instagram page are our most active pages. We have a LinkedIn and a Twitter account, but I don't think, it's as active. Our website just got remodeled, so we're really excited to launch our brand new website.
Yeah, we'll put the website up on the screen for you. But yeah, okay, great. So we'll keep an eye out for that. We'll join the Facebook page. Please support the IDA and all of the incredible work they're doing. And thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and become a member.
Yeah, what do you know how much the membership is?
The membership's $50.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, it's not much at all.
Yeah. And you just get access to all of, the research that's coming out. You are, email the latest and greatest, which is really fun. And then you can be part of our virtual dig meetings, which is the second Monday of every month. We have a virtual meeting and covers all sorts of different topics.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here and for all you do.
Thank you.